I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get blindsided like this. I mean, I thought I knew my wife, Lauren. We'd been together for 5 years, and I always believed we had a solid, straightforward relationship. We jokingly call ourselves the perfect couple, and honestly, I'd never doubted her loyalty before. But everything changed in one moment that still feels like a punch in the gut. It started a few weeks before the wedding. Things had been a little tense that summer, not because of us but because of her job. She'd been working late more often, and she'd brush it off with a quick hug and a just busy, don't worry. I bought it at the time. I mean, she's a lawyer, always running around, always on her phone. But then she started acting weird, distracted, nervous, avoiding my eyes when I'd ask simple questions about her day. One night I was sitting in our living room scrolling through my phone, and I noticed she'd left her laptop open. I didn't mean to snoop, but something made me glance at the screen. There were a bunch of recent messages, mostly from a guy named Jake. They seemed friendly at first, but then I saw a message that made my stomach drop like I'd been punched. It was from her, and she had written, "Can't wait to see you tonight, I miss you already." My heart started pounding. I looked closer. The last message was from her, and it said, "Baby, I think I might be pregnant, I'll tell him tonight." I froze. My mind raced. Who was him? And why would she say that? My hands went cold as I stared at the screen, realizing this wasn't just an innocent chat. It was something darker. I shut her laptop quickly, trying to process what I'd seen. My palms were sweaty and my stomach felt like it was twisting in knots. I didn't sleep that night, replaying her words over and over. I could feel this icy wave of suspicion creeping in, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. The next day I asked her about the messages. She looked surprised, then defensive. "It's nothing," she said quickly. "Just some work stuff. Jake's a client." But her voice was shaky, and her eyes darted away when I pressed her. That was the first real red flag. Something about her lying made me feel even more suspicious. I knew I couldn't just brush this off. I started digging, watching her more closely, paying attention to her phone, her behavior. I remember one night I caught her sneaking her phone into her purse as if she was hiding it. I told her I was tired of the secrets, and she snapped back with a sharp tone, "You're crazy. Stop accusing me." That's when I realized I was losing control. Every little thing about her was now a clue, a piece of a puzzle I didn't want to solve, but I had to be sure. I started looking at her social media, her texts, anything I could get my hands on, and I found more, plenty more. The messages from Jake weren't just friendly chats. They were full of flirtation, promises, and here, the kicker, plans to meet up. It all hit me like a freight train that she'd been lying for months. During her pregnancy announcement, she told everyone she was excited, waiting to be a mom. But behind that smile, I knew now she'd been unfaithful, and she was hiding a secret that could destroy everything. I felt my stomach twist even more, and my fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. I had to decide what to do. If she'd been lying about this, what else might she be hiding? And more than anything, I knew I couldn't stay silent. Not anymore. I needed to plan, to get answers, and somehow to take control of the mess she'd created. But even as I laid out my next steps, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much darker story. I spent the next few days walking around in a fog, my mind racing with everything I'd uncovered. The evidence was clear enough: text messages, flirtatious exchanges, plans that confirmed Jake wasn't just a friend or a client. This wasn't some innocent slip-up. It was months of lies and betrayal, all while she was telling me she was pregnant, excited about starting a family. I could feel my chest tightening every time I thought about it. I remember sitting on our porch one cool evening, the air thick with humidity, trying to piece together what I should do next. My palms were slick, and my stomach was heavy with a mix of anger and betrayal. I kept thinking, how could she do this? How could she lie right in my face? The worst part was the knowledge that she'd kept this secret from me during her pregnancy. During what should have been a time of anticipation and joy, she was cheating and hiding it. I realized I needed a plan, something to confront her with, but I couldn't do it without more solid proof. I started searching for her phone, thinking maybe I'd find something more. Sure enough, I found her password, stupidly simple, but I wasn't thinking about her paranoia at the time. Once I was in, I scrolled through her messages again, looking for anything I might have missed. That's when I found the chat logs between her and Jake, detailed and explicit. One message made my stomach churn. "I'm pregnant and I don't know how to tell him." I stared at it, feeling my vision blur. She had lied to me about everything, her pregnancy, her fidelity. I could feel my fists clenching again. It was like my entire world was collapsing around me. I knew I couldn't just confront her without a plan. I had to be ruthless, calculated. I spent the next day plotting what I'd say and do. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't some fool who'd get played without fighting back. I was angry, yes, but I also needed her to see that I was serious about exposing her. I decided I'd wait until she came home from work, then lay everything out, show her I knew the truth. That evening, I watched her walk in through the door, tired but trying to appear normal. She looked at me like she always did, smiling, trying to act natural. I felt my jaw tighten. I looked her in the eyes and said, "We need to talk now." Her smile faltered, and for a moment I thought she might bolt. She hesitated, then sat down on the couch, her face tense. "What's wrong?" she asked, voice trembling just a little. I took a deep breath, feeling the metallic taste of adrenaline in my mouth. "I know about Jake. I know about the messages. I know you've been lying to me for months." Her eyes widened and she opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. "Don't. I've seen enough. I've got the screenshot, the texts. Everything." Her face turned pale. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I snapped. "You've been cheating on me, lying about your pregnancy and hiding this from me the entire time. How could you do that? How could you betray everything we built?" She looked down, tears shimmering in her eyes, but I wasn't moved. I felt my stomach twist again, not with guilt but with a desire for justice. I knew I had to do something irreversible, some kind of revenge that would make her regret what she'd done. The plan started forming in my mind, something that would show her that I wasn't going to be played for a fool, something that would make her feel the pain of betrayal she'd inflicted on me. I knew I had to wait, to be patient, but I also knew I couldn't let her walk away scot-free. As she sat there, trembling, I realized this was just the beginning. There was a lot more I needed to do, and I'd need to be smart about it. But one thing was clear: she wasn't getting away with this. Not without paying a price. And I was going to be the one to make sure she paid. I looked at her, her eyes filled with regret, and I made a silent vow. I'd take back control of my life, and she'd regret ever crossing that line. The game was on now. Over the next couple of days, I kept my thoughts locked tight, plotting my next move. I didn't want her to sense anything, so I played it cool, acting like everything was normal when I was really boiling inside. The truth was, I couldn't get her betrayal out of my head. It kept replaying, her lies, her secret, those damn messages. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut repeatedly, and every time I looked at her, I saw the girl I thought I knew was a stranger. I spent hours researching how to handle this kind of betrayal. I wasn't about to go full meltdown or cause a scene, at least not yet. Instead, I wanted her to feel it, to understand she was under my control now. That meant I had to be strategic. I decided I'd set up a trap, something subtle but effective. I needed proof of her contact with Jake beyond the messages I'd already seen. Maybe some new evidence, something that would leave no doubt. One night I did what I rarely do: I followed her. She said she was meeting a friend for dinner, but I knew better. I parked down the street, watching her walk into a nondescript restaurant. I kept my distance, heart pounding, trying to keep my breathing steady. After a while, I saw her emerge, looking surprisingly happy, almost guilty. I followed her discreetly, noticing she headed toward an apartment complex I didn't recognize. My stomach sank. She wasn't just meeting some friend. I was pretty sure she was meeting Jake. I stayed in the shadows, feeling my fists tighten. I didn't want to confront her directly just yet. No, I needed more proof. But that night I learned enough to know I was right about my suspicions. She was still lying, still sneaking around. The betrayal had gone deeper than I thought, and I needed to turn this around on her. The following day, I decided to do something bold. I wanted her to see I wasn't bluffing. I found her phone again and secretly installed a tracking app. It was a risky move, but I knew if I wanted to catch her. In the act, I had to be proactive. I felt sick doing it, but I pushed past the guilt and focused on the goal, making her understand that I was no longer blind. That evening, I sat on the couch pretending to watch TV but kept my phone in my hand, watching her location update in real time. She'd gone to that apartment complex again. I felt a rush of adrenaline. When she finally came home, I could tell she was nervous. She kept looking over her shoulder, trying to act normal, but her eyes gave her away. The next day, I was ready. I wanted her to believe I was clueless, to catch her in the act if she slipped up again. I had a plan. I'd confront her with everything at once, but I needed her to slip up first. I told her I was going out with some friends, but I stayed close, my ears tuned into every word she said, every movement she made. Later that night, I heard her phone buzz, another message, probably from Jake. I paused, then quietly grabbed her phone from the table before she could see. I unlocked it, and there it was. A new chat full of flirtations, teasing promises. She was still lying, still sneaking around. I felt a bitter taste rise in my mouth, hot and metallic. The betrayal deepened. That moment, I knew my plan was working. I had enough now, enough to confront her head-on, to make her realize she couldn't lie anymore. But I also knew that revealing everything in anger wouldn't be enough. I had to be smart about the next step. I decided I'd wait until the perfect moment, when she'd be most vulnerable, most caught off guard. I looked at her, sitting quietly in the living room, pretending everything was okay. I had to fight the urge to yell, to smash something. Instead, I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what was coming. I'd planned my revenge carefully, and I was ready to see her face the consequences of her actions. The truth was, I wasn't just angry, I was hurt, deeply. But I also knew that if I played my cards right, I could make her regret ever betraying me. That's what kept me going. This wasn't just about punishment. It was about showing her that trust, once broken, leaves scars you can't heal. Overnight, and I was about to make sure she felt every one of them. The waiting game was the hardest part. Every hour felt like a year, and every minute was filled with the same bitter thought. How much more am I supposed to take before I do something about it? I kept telling myself that patience was key, but inside, I was burning. I needed her to slip up again, to give me that final piece of evidence I needed to blow everything wide open. One morning, I woke up with a plan that felt both ruthless and necessary. I was going to confront her, but I wanted it to be more than just a shouting match. I wanted her to see that I'd uncovered every lie, that there was no escape, no hiding from the truth. I had been gathering details, small clues I'd overlooked before. I decided to set a trap, one that would corner her completely. I started by creating a fake email account. Nothing sophisticated, just enough to look convincing. I wanted to bait her into texting or emailing Jake again, so I sent a message from this new account, pretending to be someone who knew about her affair. I kept it vague, offering her a chance to confess or ask questions. I figured if she responded, it would expose her further. That afternoon, I left my phone on the coffee table, pretending to be absorbed in a book. I kept my ears open, listening for her phone to buzz. Sure enough, it did. I saw her glance nervously at the screen, then quietly pick it up, her fingers trembling as she opened the message. I watched her read, her eyes narrowing, then her fingers flying over the keyboard. She replied, "Who is this? How do you know?" A rush of adrenaline shot through me. I stayed perfectly still, pretending I hadn't noticed her. When she finished the message, she hesitated, then typed something back. I couldn't see her words exactly, but her body language said it all. She was panicked now. The game was on. I decided to push her further. When she finally put the phone down, I looked her directly in the eyes, voice calm but icy. "That was from me. I sent it to see how you'd react. Seems like you're still lying to me." Her whole face paled and she stammered, "You're crazy. You're just trying to control me." "Control you?" "No," I said, voice rising slightly. "I just want the truth. I want to know what I've been missing all these months, and now I see you're still playing games." She looked desperate, like she was about to burst into tears or bolt for the door. Instead, she said, "It's not what it looks like. I was just what?" I cut her off. "Meeting Jake again, sending secret messages, lying right to my face." How much more do I need to see before I realize this isn't just some mistake? Her shoulders slumped and she finally broke down. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered. "I was scared, okay? I was stupid. I thought I could handle it. I didn't want to hurt you." That was the breaking point. I felt a bitter wave of anger and disappointment. All those years of trust gone in an instant. I knew then that I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I had to go all the way now. I told her I was done talking. I stood up, feeling the blood rush to my head. You lied to me, cheated on me, and played with my feelings. If you think I'm just going to forgive and forget, you're wrong. This is over. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the keys to her car and her apartment. Here, I said coldly, take your things. I don't want you in my life anymore. I'll be discussing this with a lawyer tomorrow. Her face twisted with pain, but I didn't care. I was done with her lies, done with feeling like the fool. I handed her the keys, my fingers cold and tight around them. Her eyes filled with tears, and she begged, please don't do this, we can fix it. Fix what? I shot back. You broke it, you broke us. I turned and walked out, leaving her sitting there, crying, clutching the keys that once symbolized our future. That moment I felt a strange mix of relief and rage. I'd finally taken control. I'd shown her she couldn't lie and cheat without consequence. The house felt emptier now, colder. But I knew this was just the start. The real reckoning was still coming. And as I stepped outside, I realized I'd never let her forget what she'd done. The betrayal had opened my eyes, and I was never going to be blind again. The days after I kicked her out were a blur. I felt hollow, like I'd just gone through a storm and was left standing in the wreckage. I didn't sleep much, replaying everything in my head, her tears, her pleas, the look in her eyes when she realized I knew the full extent of her lies. It burned me up that she'd betrayed me so completely, and yet part of me also felt a strange clarity. I finally understood that I'd been living in a fantasy, one that I desperately wanted to hold onto even as it crumbled. I kept asking myself, what do I do now? The answer was clear. I needed to make her regret she ever crossed me. Not with some childish scheme, but with something calculated, something that would hit her at her core. I started to formulate a plan, something ruthless but within bounds. I wanted her to remember what she'd lost, and I wanted her to know she'd been caught. First, I contacted my lawyer. I wanted to understand my options, especially around the house and finances. I was determined to cut her out completely. No more shared assets, no more joint accounts. I didn't want her to walk away with a dime. The thought of her walking free, unscathed after all her lies, made my blood boil. I had to remind her that betrayal came with a price. Then I started gathering evidence. I had screenshots, messages, even recordings of her voice that I'd secretly made during those tense moments before she left. I knew I'd need everything if this went to court, or if I wanted her to feel the damage she'd caused. I wanted her to see that I was serious. This wasn't just about ending things. It was about making her understand she couldn't cheat and lie without consequences. One night, I got a call from a private investigator I hired. I told him everything about her secret meetings, her lies, her disappearing acts. I wanted solid proof of her ongoing contact with Jake, especially now that she was supposedly single again. The investigator promised to get some photos and a few recordings. I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and bitterness listening to him. I knew I was crossing a line, but honestly I didn't care. She crossed every line with me. Meanwhile, I kept my distance, watching her from afar through the information I had, feeling a strange, almost cathartic sense of power creeping in. She was trying to move on, I knew, posting vague quotes on social media, acting like nothing had happened. But I saw through it. Her facade was cracking. I could see the desperation in her posts, the way she tried to act like everything was fine, but her eyes told a different story. One afternoon, I decided I'd have the final showdown. I waited until I knew she was at her new apartment. I had carefully mapped out my approach, calm, collected, but firm. I wasn't going to scream or shout. I'd let her see that I was in control. I knocked on her door, and when she opened it, her face went pale. I have something to say, I told her, voice low but steady. You've lied, cheated, and betrayed me in ways I can't even count anymore. I've got the evidence, and I'm not interested in playing your games anymore. This is over. For good. She tried to speak, but I raised my hand to stop her. No more lies. I know about Jake, about the pregnancy. I know everything, and I'm done pretending to be okay with it. Her eyes shimmered with tears, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she whispered, "I was scared. I didn't want to lose everything." "Exactly," I said, feeling my voice tighten. "You were afraid, so you cheated. You lied and you kept hiding it. Well, I'm not going to be your punching bag anymore. I'm going to make sure you remember what you've done." I handed her a folder with all the evidence I'd collected, screenshots, recordings, the investigators' photos. Her hands trembled as she looked through it. Her face turned red, then white, then back to red again. It was like she was seeing herself for the first time, and I hoped that moment haunted her forever. "I'm filing for divorce," I told her, "and I'm going to get everything I deserve. You're not walking away with my life, my money, or anything else. You made your choices. Now you deal with the fallout." She broke down completely then, sobbing into her hands. "Please," she begged, voice thick with tears. "Can't we just talk? Talk is over," I said coldly. "You had your chance, it's done." I turned and walked away, leaving her crying behind me. I felt lighter somehow, knowing I'd taken back my power. As I drove away that day, I realized how much weight had lifted. I'd finally cut her loose, and I was finally free of the lies. I knew there would be repercussions, legal battles, maybe some shame, but I also knew that I'd taken the first step toward healing. I'd done what she never expected. I'd fought back and reclaimed my life. The takeaway: sometimes you have to be ruthless to get your life back. Trust is fragile, and when betrayed, you owe it to yourself to walk away stronger than before. Looking back now, I realize that the whole process was a brutal wake-up call. I'd been naive, trusting her blindly, thinking that love and loyalty were enough. But betrayal doesn't just break your heart. It shatters your sense of security, your future, everything you believed in. The thing I've learned is that sometimes the only way to heal is to cut out the poison completely. After everything, I packed up her remaining stuff, handed over the keys, and told her to never contact me again. I didn't want her apology or whatever she thought she was owed. I just wanted her gone out of my life and to reclaim my peace. As I watched her drive away with tears rolling down her face, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. The house was quiet now, too quiet, but at least it was mine again. Since then, I've taken time to reflect. I don't regret what I did. I don't regret fighting for myself. Betrayal like that leaves scars, but it also teaches you who you are: strong, resilient, capable of walking away from the ruins. My advice: trust is fragile, and when it's broken, protect yourself first. Don't wait for everything to crumble before you take control. It's easy to fall into the trap of hoping things will change or that someone will come around, but being honest with yourself about what's happening is crucial. Confrontation hurts, but silence can kill you slowly. Sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away, knowing you're better off without the lies and deception. Most importantly, don't lose sight of your worth. Betrayal can make you feel small, but it also reveals your strength. I found mine in taking back what was mine and refusing to be a victim of her choices. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to remember, it's that you don't have to accept betrayal. You have the power to walk away, rebuild, and come out stronger on the other side. And that's exactly what I did. I closed that chapter, and I'm finally moving forward, free from the shadows of her lies. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Sometimes the only way to truly heal is to let go, completely and unapologetically.